let me run a couple ads.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Well, welcome to Detroit in Black and White. I'm Adolph Mongo. I see we got Vanessa Moss in the studio waiting to come on. And Jay Mardoni. Vanessa, you outside or something? Because half your head is gone. Half your head is gone.
Oh, dang. Okay, wait a minute. Is it there now?
It's still half of it gone. No matter what you do, it's half gone. Now you upside down. We want to see your eyes. This is what we love. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing great. Just so our viewers know, we're working without our heart and soul here. Teresa's not here, and we're struggling.
Teresa is the rock. It's the glue that makes everything work.
Is that better?
You remind me of those food critics on TikTok who be outside in their car eating gluttons, eating 25 hamburgers and shit. I got to follow some of them. Tamika is one of my favorites. Man, she can eat a whole Wendy's up. I hope she's getting paid because she got millions of folks watching her stuff, and all she do is eat. She eats. She said, "Bitch, this is good." She gets some food and she starts shaking. It's
my goodness.
Yeah. And then there's a guy here in the Detroit area called himself Mr. Collard Greens, and he gives reviews of different places and stuff. Man, these people can throw down. I don't know how they still living.
Well, I am at my cousin's house, Sharita's, and I'm sitting outside. We did have on Sundays, I talk about this all the time. On Sundays, you notice, Adolph, I cook every Sunday and have family and friends over. Well, I didn't want to do it this Sunday, so I cooked a meal today, and I decided that I wasn't going to have it at my place. I came over to her place. So they're inside, they're playing music, watching television, and I didn't want the noise to be a distraction, so I came outside. I'm sitting on the patio.
Well, we do exchange, and we got all kind of folks
That's
coming in
true.
there.
That's true. That's
Alleviated
true.
folks, obnoxious folks, people that storm the set folks, etc. So that wouldn't have been no big deal. Well,
Now, I don't know.
I
Okay, go
want to
ahead.
talk about what the day is and do this panel celebrate 4th of July. I'm going to go back to you, Vanessa.
No.
Okay. Why? Tell me.
No. When I was growing up, we would celebrate it, but as I got older, it's not a big deal to me. And I understand that the country is celebrating its independence, but for me, it's not a big deal. Um, just 18 days ago, we celebrated Juneteenth. And, you would have some people that would say, hey, it's the celebration. That's when the people in Texas found out that that slavery is over. And you will have some people who say that to a certain extent that we're still in slavery. But I just don't celebrate it. I don't think that, I think that like most holidays, every 4th of July sale, if it's Gardner White, if it's Kroger, if it's Amazon, it's commercialized, and so I just don't celebrate it. You know,
Uh,
I did go yesterday. A friend of mine lives in Wall Lake, and she had a fireworks Fourth of July celebration in her house. It was myself. She had about 25 people, and it was three of us who did not even move to go and look at the fireworks. I really don't care.
okay, well, I never liked fireworks even as a kid, and there was nothing political about me liking it. Karen Winston said hello all. Jim, are you a big Fourth of July participant?
You know, I'm not a big holiday person. Working in the job I had is you really didn't get holidays off. So I really holidays for me were more work because we used to have Fourth of July celebrations. So we'd have a street fair and a Fourth of July, and that's kind of all we would do, right? We worked a lot, but I guess you know this evening I've been thinking a little bit about our world and how we evolved. How this country is evolving or not or devolving or whatever you want to call it here. You know,
Right.
I picked up the Detroit News this week, and you know, a place that's near and dear to my heart, and Vanessa, your son Miles was there, is Atlanta, Georgia. And this week in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
the headlines, it was in the Detroit News this week. This is Confederacy group sues Georgia Park for planning exhibit on slavery, segregation, and white supremacy. So if you've ever been to Stone Mountain Park, some of you have, a lot of people have. It's a beautiful park. The problem is they've made this carving of three Confederates the centerpiece
Mm-hmm.
of the park. So in 1915, they decided that they were going to turn it into a park for the Confederacy. Well, what happened in 1950 on Thanksgiving is the KKK was up there on Stone Mountain burning a cross. So as it evolved, they built the park. The carving was completed in the early 70s, and they have been, you know, this is the way it is, and screw everybody else. We're going to honor the Confederacy. So in 2020, with some of the issues that we had with George Floyd and some of the other issues around the country, the group that runs Stone Mountain decided to have a truth-telling exhibition, right? And the government of Georgia gave them $11 million to do it. Well, now they're suing because they don't want to relocate a few Confederate flags and talk about the evolution of this country, and it's frustrating.
But it is frustrating when you got a group of folks that said, you know what, we don't want you to talk about slavery because it makes people feel bad. We didn't make you slaves. Well, you didn't make who made people. We were slaves for 300 years. Jim Crow for another 100 and something years in the South, and I guess you got people thinking, well, you know, why don't you forget about it, move on. But when it's smacked in your face every day, if you gotta go past Stone Mountain or you gotta go past these statues, you don't want to look at that shit. And when I moved to Frederick, Maryland, back in the early 1980s, and I was a reporter there in Frederick County, Maryland, and I was assigned to cover the county court. I went there, and right outside that building was a statue of Supreme Court Justice Roger B. Taney. He was the author of the Dred Scott decision that says Black people were 3/5 human beings. His house is still there in Frederick. He was born there. He's buried there. And I'm like, man, I went back to the paper and said, how long that statue been up there? They said forever, you know, since the early 1900s or whatever. And, you know, I called the NAACP president and some other Black folks, and some and said, "What do y'all think about this statue?" They said, "Well, it should never be standing. It should tear it down." Man, I got all kind of threats, death threats. They put police around the statue, got angry letters. You know, I wrote about 2 or 3 stories on it. They talking about he freed his slaves when he died and all this shit. You know, you hear the same shit all the time. And 40 years later, they were still fighting, trying to get the statue removed. And that's why they was successful in other places to remove his statue. They put it in a museum. They put him in a warehouse or whatever. But Frederick, man, they done fought this thing forever, you know. So, you know, this group that don't want to see slavery, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, you know, we can have our statues and we can fly our Confederate flags, but you can't talk about your history. You can't read a certain book. I saw online today sometime in the South where they had a 4th of July parade. They had Nazi flags and Confederate flags and a marching in the 4th of July. And they had American flags, but they had all 3 of these flags. It's unbelievable. And these people call themselves patriots, Americans, and shit. How many people died in World War II for fighting for democracy and freedom? You know how many people died during the Civil War, which tore this country apart? How many people died during Jim Crow, lynch, etc.? And then we got to see military bases named after folks that looked upon Black folks as nothing, you know. And I shit, you go to these places and you wonder how the hell they get these names. So, yeah, 4th of July. As a kid, I read Frederick Douglass. What is the 4th of July? And I happened to some of his
what's going on with
great
the
grandkids. What?
everybody keeps going in and out except for me.
Oh no, it's you are the only one going.
You're the only one going in and out.
Can I want you to speak, Vanessa, and I don't know what's going on. Okay. But what I wanted to say was we're going to make the 4th of July Karen Winston Day because she has a great son. It's his 44th birthday and 21-year-old twin's birthday. So as a twin, I knew I liked Karen, but I guess she has 21-year-old twins. So
Well,
happy birthday to twins and your son, Karen.
You have an identical twin, huh?
I am, yeah.
One's liberal, one's a fanatic.
Beat up.
You're the fanatic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's the 4th of July.
We were hoping to hear from.
But I don't know what that is.
Well, we have a little technical issue with Vanessa. You might have to log on and log out. We can't hear you, Vanessa.
I'm going to mute her just for a second. I don't know what I'm doing behind the scenes here, but I'm going to try and keep going here. But what's really interesting about Stone Mountain Park is that it's a great park, but they should forget about the carving. They should forget about the history and make it into a beautiful park and get rid of all the other things. If you ask me,
and they need to. And for your information, same guy that carved out the figures on Mount Rushmore, he did the same thing at Stone Mountain. You know, and
they hired him, but he didn't do it. He didn't end up doing it yet.
Yeah, he got paid. You know, listen, folks got paid, and we have to look at when all these statues and monuments came about. About 40, 50, 60 years after the Civil War, where people wanted to change the narrative of what happened during the Civil War when the South wanted to break away from the United States, and they want to keep saying that, oh, it wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights, etc. And listen, the South had a lot of power in D.C. because slaves count as towards the population. They control the House, the Senate. They still was not satisfied, and because of one issue and one issue alone that tore this country apart, and that was slaves. And now they don't want to talk about it. Those folks that says people are woke, yeah, I'm woke, I'm wide awake, and you can stamp out books. You can say you're getting rid of DEI and all this other bullshit, but what are you going to do next? Start digging up the graves of military folks of color out of Arlington and shit? It's just they spend all their time on this shit, and it doesn't make sense. And you're right, Jim. It's a park. People pay taxes for it. I don't want to go to Bill Isle, and they got all kind of statues of folks that preach hate and all kind of other shit. And people say, "Oh, get over it," and you can't get over it. You're looking at that shit every day. You don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. So this 4th of July, some people in some circles of this country are celebrating, saying that we got democracy is back. The same folks that stormed the Capitol got out. I know they celebrate 4th of July. Say America is a great country, and then there's others saying we on the road to hell. What's going to happen next? We don't know. In D.C., they're going to surprise us. So that's how I look at the 4th of July. Nothing is the same without your parents anyway. Holidays and holidays just ain't. You're right, Vanessa. They fucking commercialize the holidays. I don't care that. Listen, Jesus is selling cars on Christmas time. When does the shit end?
I do.
We still having a problem with you. Okay.
The holidays, whether it's the 4th of July, whether it's can you hear me okay?
No, you
guys
keep
hear me
going
okay?
in and out. You keep going in and out.
You guys are frozen.
No, you.
Yeah, you guys are going in and out. So,
You're good
it's
now.
me. Okay, maybe I need to
Yeah,
go
it's you.
inside. But
Yeah, why don't you go
okay, so the
inside?
point that I was trying to make is this: y'all want to hear the music? I got the dog with me. I'm fur
It
babysitting.
don't
I'm gonna go
matter.
inside. I'm going
Go on
to
inside.
mute, and I'm going inside. It takes me a hot second. Then I'm gonna follow up my
Okay.
thought. Okay.
We're gonna hold
Hold on.
with you, please.
Okay, you don't like my music? Say it must be pretty hard to be patriotic American right now. I guess it is. Karen Winston said it is too commercialized. Taylor Venice, you keep saying over and over, but it you keep doing things that make me remember.
Keep reminding people of the hatred in this country.
Well, but listen, because you don't talk about it don't mean it's not there.
Correct.
And it's like if you're not in the forest where a tree falls, do it not fall because you wasn't there and you didn't hear it? And unhappy?
Well, I think maybe Taylor Vernice is talking about the bad reasons that we're reminded of hate in this country. I don't want to speak for her, but we're reminding people with what's going on in places like Stone Mountain that this country's not ready. What about the 4th of July for the indigenous people? What about the 4th of July for black people? What about the 4th of July for everybody? So everybody wasn't free in 1776.
Right. What about Columbus?
Is that better?
Okay. Yes.
Is
Yeah.
that better?
Yeah, that's better.
We're waiting for you. Go ahead.
Okay. So it was something that you said earlier about when your parents are gone, the holidays are just not the same. And we both talked about how holidays have been commercialized. I think for most of us, the holidays, it's not necessarily celebrating the 4th of July or celebrating Memorial Day or Labor Day or any of those other days. We usually use it as most of us use it as a time to get together with our families. Those are days that we don't have to go to work. Those of us that work, it's a day off. And we get a chance to spend time with our family. So we use it as an avenue to just fellowship with family and friends. I think I speak for a lot of people who do that for the holidays. People are very excited about the time off. They're excited about seeing people that they may have not seen in the last few months or whatever the case may be. And I think that's what the holiday is really about. The true meaning of the holiday, like celebrating the independence of America on the 4th of July, people aren't really recognizing. When you're talking about celebrating Memorial Day, recognizing the veterans, you may have a parade here and there, but when people get together, that's not the topic of conversation. The
But I
topic of
think,
conversation is tunk, dominoes,
but I think
poker,
people, I, but I
drinking
think
beer,
people
drinking wine,
celebrate.
doing whatever to celebrate and fellowship with their families.
Yeah,
That's
but
my
I
take
think,
on
I think,
all
I think
holidays.
Memorial Day is probably people do get into it because they go out to the grave sites and stuff. If you go to D.C., Arlington National Cemetery, listen, it's packed with people every day. So I think that's one holiday that people do really recognize. And I'm not talking about sitting at home and barbecuing and say Happy Memorial Day, because ain't nothing happy about Memorial Day. Because it's usually, if you're saying you going to somebody's grave, somebody who gave their life to fight
Yeah.
for this country, and and Frederick Douglass talked about that. Why do slaves would celebrate 4th of July? Listen, why would I celebrate Juneteenth? To say I finally found out that the proclamation said that I was free, and I didn't know about it for 2 years. I don't think that's something to celebrate, but that's not me, because they're gonna have a Juneteenth sale, and Juneteenth shirts and all that. Uh, Kwanzaa, another holiday that was created back in the '60s. And I'm not a big Christmas person, but I'm surely not a Kwanzaa person. I'm not staying at home. When I worked at newspapers, I used to work during the Christmas time. Me and several other folks of Jewish faith who didn't celebrate Christmas, while we worked. So somebody else that celebrated Christmas, had families and stuff, they could stay home for 2 or 3 days. I wanted the extra money. It wasn't paying me. It wasn't paying me the mega bucks anyway. So it's one of those things. Jim.
Shall we take a break, Adolf?
Yeah, let's take a break and see.
Thanks to everybody that's tuning in. We appreciate it. We're trying to make a go of it today without, like I said, our heart and soul. But stay with us, and we'll try and get to you.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Okay, we're back. You want to read some of the comments, Jim?
From my friend Janet Selleck from Victory Gym on July 5th, 1852. Frederick Douglass gave a keynote address at an Independence Day celebration and asked, "What to the slave is the 4th of July?"
I think that was a very legitimate question.
Douglass said, "You celebrate, I must grieve."
Yeah.
You don't like my music. The winter solstice means the most to me, but I still have Christmas dinner with family. That's free food. And you don't like my music. I think you missed us on Wednesday. We talked about the loss of Canadian business. He lives across the river and up the 401 there. And we talked about the loss of Canadian business. And I would tell people this: I don't care where you're from. Don't, and I think you hit on it.
Are you guys?
Like
I can't hear anything. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Don't confuse
Okay, so I don't
the
want
American
anybody
people
to
with the
think that I'm
American
doing
political
something.
system, and I'm sure you don't.
Okay. Go ahead.
And finally, it's bad here too, referring,
I don't
believe,
want
to Canada.
anybody to think that I'm doing something.
Go ahead, Vanessa. Tell us what you're thinking.
I said I don't want y'all to think that I'm drinking some alcohol or anything. This is water with
You don't have to explain.
So what
red
is
Solo
drinking
cup.
alcohol? You know what? You're getting drunk on the air. I don't care.
No,
Listen,
I'm not.
enjoying your
But I don't get drunk,
Yeah.
so that wouldn't be me. I don't get drunk.
Okay. But yeah, okay. On this topic of one last question. Do we have too many holidays?
No, I don't think we have enough. I like the time off.
Well, this ain't France, where they got
I
a
think
20-hour work week.
I was just getting ready to go there. I do think that we, that we work too much. I think we could appreciate having more days off. Speaking of that, I think that didn't the president of the United States make a comment about we had too many holidays off that we need to work. I think he said something like that. And
Yeah,
in some parts of the United States, there are people who don't recognize certain holidays, and those businesses continue to open. And they open, people don't get time off, and they continue to work. So
well, he play golf every day, so he's talking about people working. I did have a shot in the beer with my son today. Okay, Karen, shot in the beer. Okay, I like the shot, but I don't like the beer.
I think we're going to have to maybe get this a little upbeat here, but I'm just going to tell you what the 4th of July in 2025 brought. 1 dead after a fireworks explosion in California's Simi Valley, a warehouse explosion near Sacramento. The blast and fire leaves 7 warehouse workers unaccounted for. 1 Iowa man killed on July 3rd. Whitmore. He was airlifted to a hospital and died. And in January, 5 fatalities on New Year's Eve celebration in Hawaii. So I guess, unfortunately, what these kind of holidays, mixing alcohol a lot of times with fire causes problems. So we're not going to convince anybody not to celebrate. We're not going to convince anybody not to go light themselves on fire. But please don't lose your hand or your fingers or your eye out there with using fireworks.
Well, anyway, let's move on. We got 1 month tomorrow, exactly 1 month tomorrow for the primary for mayor, city council, clerk, etc. I don't think it's really a race for clerk. I don't think anybody's running against Janet Winfrey. Jim, your take on the stretch run?
My take is we have to bring the candidates out of wherever they're hiding from to find out what they're really standing for, because nobody knows. And this is a very quiet campaign, and it's unfortunate.
Vanessa.
yes. What was your question? What is my take on the upcoming election, the local?
Yeah.
So I saw I saw something. I think it was, I was in the store yesterday, or maybe it was, no, I wasn't in the store yesterday. It was today. The headlines, this is Detroit Free Press said the campaign is lighting up, basically saying that the candidates are going after each other. Now, I don't know who they talk about or what they're talking about. Um, there seems to be, not seems, there are a lot of forums going on where the candidates are addressing uh, the public, but you still have a lot of voter apathy. A lot of people are not coming out, and the few people that are into number one, I don't think that we're gonna have a large voter turnout. I think it's gonna be very, very low, which is, I think it's gonna be normal. What's normal for us here. Two, even with all these forums, and now I see even more billboards. I mean, Lord Jesus, I see a lot of billboards. I'm getting a lot of literature in the mail. Um, and you see a lot of commercials, but it's on social media. I don't know what they're doing on regular television. I don't
I saw
watch
some.
regular
I
television.
saw some commercials.
I
Reverend
don't,
Kinlock,
but
and Mary and Mary Sheffield got commercials on regular TV, but that's about it. I don't know what the Free Press, the editorial board, all these people that so-called make these decisions of endorsements and stuff. Fuckers don't know what's going on in the community, and there's been no fireworks. There's been no rock'em sock'em stuff, because they don't want rock'em sock'em at some of these forums. If you was gonna get some fireworks, why don't you let Todd Perkins debate? He gets shut out every single time. You gotta make this shit interesting, I guess, because I want it to be interesting. I want to know what the agendas are, instead of just some sound bites. Some of these folks saying, "Oh, I'm going to do affordable housing." I can say I want affordable housing for folks, but what do that fucking mean? Affordable housing.
affordable housing. I don't even. Yeah, I don't even like, and I don't care if it's the local politics, if it's national politics. When you say affordable, I'm going to use something else that people use. That's a fluid phraseology, if you will. What does affordable mean? It's a catchphrase. Now, I'm going to ask you, if you're working every day and you're middle class, do you necessarily, if you buy into affordable living, do you want to live next to um, housing, what people call affordable housing complex? Do you want to live next to affordable housing complex?
We're having a problem with
most people
Yes,
middle class
Vanessa,
will
we're
tell
gonna
you no, they don't want to live there.
cut her.
Yeah, why don't you? We're having a problem with your audio, Vanessa.
I'll cut her, but here's the issue. I want to backtrack on what Vanessa's talking about, and a house that costs $50,000.
Listen, I'm gonna log off. I'm gonna log off. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
She's logging out.
A house that cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 last year or 2, 3, 4 years ago now costs $200,000. So where is the affordable housing?
There's no affordable housing because it's what the market. Well, some affordable housing that used to be affordable that was Section 8 10 years ago. Now somebody's paying $1 million to stay in the same shit. How's that affordable housing? When these tax credits expire, they raise the rent. Or some people paying $200 a month, $300, and then all of a sudden it's $2,000 a month. People can't afford that.
Well, along the lines of rent, your friend Charlie LaDuff has been releasing videos on the Reverend Kinlock. I don't know if anybody's seen them.
Yeah, I saw it, but this is what bothers me. Where were all these folks that's saying, well, Reverend Kinlock just moved into the city, etc. None of them said that shit to Duggan. He did
the exact same thing, right?
He did the exact same thing. Had a house in Livonia. His wife never moved to Detroit. Stayed right there. Dave Bean, wife, I wouldn't know her from Adam and Eve. Never left their home in Bingham Farm. Nobody said nothing. Didn't write about it. They mentioned it. So if Reverend Kinlock wanted to move into Detroit, it was already set in motion 12 years ago by Mike Duggan, and before that, Dave Bean. So I think that's just a waste of fucking airtime or whatever, you know.
I appreciate the comment by you don't like my music. Equity is purely subjective too. Equality is not. I like that comment. Non-debate forums are probably designed to get someone in office. MR 1213 is way ahead of the game. I think he's right on top of that too. They are trying to get to the finish line before somebody finishes them off. I think there's some truth to that. And hello, Derek Henry. Livonia Mike, go ahead, Adolph. I'm sorry.
But you know, and politics is politics. So Detroit don't have the market on how campaigns are run, because you can always go back in time and see where dead people won the election. You know, folks, we had a state rep here back in the 60s named Daniel West. He's supposed to have been an attorney. He represented a part of Detroit. The feds start investigating him, taking money from clients, etc. Come to find out that wasn't his real name. The guy wasn't an attorney, and he disappeared. They could never find him. He got elected. He was elected a state rep. Daniel West, they still want it. Well, he probably dead by now. But this is what people do. You know, people say they won't change with some of these candidates, but that's my candidate. I'm gonna vote for my candidate. I don't care if they did whatever. That's my scumbag, and I like him, you know, or her or whatever. That you see it. It happens downriver, across 8 Mile Road, all over the place. You know, they keep people in office, but they want the other person to get out the way.
Why don't you take a shot at the question, Adolph? Because I think it's a great question. What's the state of civic pride
in Detroit these days? And that's a tough question. You know, there's people that like being from Detroit, and then there's people that still piss on it. I was watching the other day one of those game shows where they had a contestant, and they asked the guy, "Where are you from?" A typical looking suburban guy. He said, "Oh, Detroit, Michigan." Usually, it used to be, "I'm from Holly or Novi or Northfield," and they would say, "Where is that at?" "Oh, that's right outside Detroit," you know. So, yeah, it is. There is some civil pride for a certain groups of folks, but then there's folks that, you know, they just trying to survive. They just trying to see how they gonna keep their lights on, or get the water cut back on, or what kind of groceries they got, or medication that they can't afford, and police don't come when you call, or they show up 2 days later. You know, the 911 asks you, did anybody get shot? You say no. Okay, we put you on the list. Show up 10 hours later. Yeah. So
So is it candidate apathy or is it voter apathy? I think it's a little
I
bit
think
of
it's a
both.
little both. I think when you had Obama running, you had people who go out and they voted because it wasn't a campaign, it was a movement. I think when you had Donald Trump run the second time, you had folks that really wanted Donald Trump and they went to the polls. And there it is. They kicked the Democrats out of Congress, out of the Senate. Yeah. So they were making a statement. Will they make this statement these midterms and say we're not satisfied with who we elected? Because there's when I was living in western part of Michigan, there was a township there that it got to the point where the state government had to intervene. They was recalling every 6 months the supervisor. Get a new supervisor, a group of people get together, say, we don't wait 6 months. We don't like this person did this. And they do a recall. So politics has been a funny business all the way going back to when this country was founded. Nothing has changed. Only the technology got better.
I think there's still a great deal of pride in the community, not only the city, but the surrounding communities. When you talk about people from Holly, say they're from Detroit. And I heard a young man today say he just says he's from Detroit whenever he's out of town because people, like you said, they're familiar with Detroit. But there's a lot of good things happening in the city. And we can't, people tend to focus on the negative. It's not all negative. So Detroit's a lot better place than it was a decade ago.
And you're right. And I just want to this mayor's race. I just hope that we get something that get a person that's going to be able to handle this shit and not give the keys to some of these folks that I see lurking around campaigns. And we talked about this, Jim. I call them poverty pimps, and they profit off in people's misery, and the only thing they want out of a winning campaign is, as I said, I want a project, I want some money, could care less about improving stuff. The school system is one of those deals where everybody had their hand out, and you can look at the state of the school district. A lot of contracts go through that place, but does it make it the system any better? No. City has a lot of contracts, and mayor and city council people, they got to run all the time. They got to raise money. So you got folks that saying, what I'm going to get out of it if I support you. And people I hear there's certain candidates are making deals already. They're making promises to folks.
And what does that remind you of?
Yeah, that reminds me of Kwame. And we went through that shit. Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and read some of the comments and continue this. It's me and Jim. Vanessa had some technical issues. She was out and about. Thanks for trying, Vanessa. And Alan is not in today. He's celebrating the 4th of July.
And thanks to all our friends out there that are sharing their time with us tonight.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. Are you living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, or maybe you know someone who's in the same situation? The probate process may be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. We have several nonprofit partners who have free attorneys who can assist you. Contact our office, 313-224-5990. or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. Don't lose your family property. Some of these properties have been in the family for 4 or 5 generations. Contact us now. We're here to help.
Okay, so we had an issue with Donald Trump today where he was talking about money lenders. He didn't know that was an offensive term towards Jews. And don't he have somebody that brief him on shit, or he just off the cuff all the time?
Isn't his son-in-law a
Yes,
Jewish man?
yes, yeah. Well,
Well,
and
he had a flyover to sign the bill today. I don't really get that. You know, it costs a lot of money to fly military jets across the skies in Washington, D.C.
And long as he don't have to pay for it, he doesn't give a fuck. And just think if one of those jets crash, and you know, heaven help us. And now your other favorite president said publicly, Joe Biden, that he getting calls every day from world leaders. What are they talking about?
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Why would they call Joe Biden? Can he remember?
Well, isn't that what Trump said they called him when Joe Biden was president?
Right. Yeah.
So what is the housing vacancy rates downtown? I think are things loose. I think they may be loosening up a little bit, but the rentals are outrageous, aren't they?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Karen says it seems that many contracts for the election department always surface at election time. However, there's always confusion around the ballot counting. Yes. Yeah. You don't like my music? Said maybe they call Biden people. Well, Biden people was the, rats are the first to jump a sinking ship. And they was jumping left and right from Joe Biden during the election. Even Joe Biden jumped from the Titanic.
And he can and you know, like my music, can ask just as many questions as he'd like, because we're glad to have you here tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's unbelievable. It's just that, fourth, people supposed to have a good time. And Vanessa was saying how they commercialized the fourth, and I was just watching Walmart has a 4th of July sale, so we mix everything together. You're a patriot, and plus it's capitalism at the same time.
Well, patriot is a word that is not really all that positive today. I don't think we make patriots out of people that are not paid. A patriot is not a political party. A patriot, there's patriots from all walks of life in this country, and some patriots are being shortchanged because people are trying to associate patriots with the current president, and I think that's a misstep.
Well, Janet Saylor said Shylock from the Merchant of Venice is what Trump made a reference to. I don't even think he know what the Merchant of Venice is. I don't think he ever read a book. There's a joke going around that's saying that the Trump library burnt down and all 2 books were destroyed, and only one it was only one book that he had open to color in. So
Coloring book.
A coloring book. So yeah, so this is what.
So is he flying that big 747? Do we have that 747 yet? That's
no, because they gotta have to put several million, several hundred million dollars into it. But let's move on. You former law enforcement officer, Jim. P. Diddy, should he got bail?
Absolutely, he should get bail. There is no
What
doubt he
is,
should be
what is the
out.
judge? What is the judge playing politics with this one?
You know, the criminal justice system isn't designed to punish people that you don't like, and it's clear that this judge is very biased. I'm not going to talk about the merits of the case, but typically this case is it's a low-level felony, and a low-level felony, to say he's a threat to society, to me is outrageous, because to me it appears to be no more than a domestic violence case. That's all I see. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I'm wrong. But from what I see, it looks like a domestic violence case. Some people were clinging to P. Diddy because he's wealthy and he can buy him champagne and let him drive his Lamborghini or whatever the case may be. That happens all over the place. They should choose their associates better.
Well, I'm saying you got folks that got murder charges against them and out on bail. And this guy served 9 months, got found not guilty of the most serious charges, and boom. This spitting image of what Judge Nancy Edmonds did in the federal court with Kwame Kilpatrick and Bobby Ferguson. Usually in the federal court, they let them go home, wrap it up. You know, they was nonviolent offenders. She put the chains on them and threw them. It's like, that's when people say, oh, enough is enough. Not that they love Kwame Kilpatrick, but the judge, they can see through the judge. It's like, this is bullshit.
I agree 100%. They when they arrested him in September, they threw him in jail. They didn't give him any opportunity to take care of any of his personal business. That seems like an angry judge to me. Why not give the guy an opportunity? Why not put him on a tether? This is what we're going to do. The trial's good. They locked him up. He's been locked up ever since the charges, and that's not typical.
No, it's not. Derrick Henry said Diddy's judge worked for the firm, a liquor company that P. Diddy sued. So he said that the judge is getting back at P. Diddy. It's funny. Yeah, so it's like the O.J. Simpson theft robbery in Las Vegas. He's trying to get his own shit back, but he got punished. What, they get 9 years because they were still pissed at him for getting off and the murder of his wife and the waiter from the restaurant.
But we have to respect the jury system. Why do we only respect the jury system when we agree with it? That's not the way the system's supposed to work. Yeah, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but the prosecution overcharged. The judge was more aligned with the prosecution in this case, and it still didn't. They still didn't get what they wanted. They still didn't get 20 or 30 or 40 years. He's looking at 2 charges, 10 years each. He should be out on bond.
Yeah, and I hear some former prosecutor say that he should just get time served.
I agree. Thank you, Mr. Duckett.
And let him out. He did.
Yeah, when you have $500 million or $600 million, you can get good legal counsel. So,
well, that's the way it's always been. You know, the rich get richer.
Would they have gone after him if he didn't have $500 or $600 million? Would they have gone after him if he was just some guy that was buying prostitutes and baby oil? If he owned a little business in Melvindale?
Nope. They thought they had the big fish. It's like the Michael Jackson trial. He thought they had the big fish. And
well, that's interesting. talk
Yeah.
about the big fish. I was reading about the Jeffrey Feiger case a little bit, and I had forgotten about it. When the federal government charged Jeffrey Feiger and he hired Jerry Spence. Do you remember that? I'm sure
Yeah,
you do.
and Jerry Spence got him off.
Yes, he did.
And remember when the feds went after Carl Marlinga,
Yes.
and Carl Marlinga went into court and beat him. You
Yes,
know,
he did.
because they overplayed their hand, and we got them by the balls. And at the end, they was patting themselves on the back with Kwame Kilpatrick got locked up, but he got the last laugh.
And same way with Jeffrey Feiger and his team, Carl
Right.
Marlinga and his team. You're talking about good
John
attorneys.
Edwards and his team.
Yes. Although it cost him the White House, perhaps.
Yeah, but but he didn't go to jail. You don't like my music says take his passport. R. Kelly was a different story. You know, they got R. Kelly for fucking around with little girls
Right.
and shit. You know,
I don't think Sean Combs is a good guy. He's not a good guy, but
no, he's not.
There's a lot of people that aren't good men and women out there in this society. It doesn't make them criminals because you don't like the way they behave.
Miss Sheila say sad. Law is not law. It's relationships and money dance. What happened to justice for truth? Yeah, you're right. Look at Trump went on trial in 4 or 5 different cases, and he's sitting in the White House. This is America. I was not. Were you surprised by the verdict?
I was not surprised by the verdict. I was surprised that they charged him. Actually, I was surprised that they charged him in this situation.
That video where he beat the woman, assaulted her and drug her across the hotel floor. That's what made him want to go really kill him. You know, we're gonna throw him away for life. And
that's a 90-day sentence right there in this state.
And we're gonna take all his money and all his businesses, all his house. Yes. So if we get P. Diddy, we can get the other folks. I'm not an attorney. I'm not in law enforcement. But when you say RICO, ain't you supposed to have about 5 or 6 other people that you got standing up there with you that y'all conspired, y'all sat down and talked about how you was gonna do this, and do this. You got one guy that's calling the shots, saying, "I'm paying everybody." Okay, do the nastiest thing that you can do. You know who he copied all that shit from? You ever see that movie Caligula?
I never did see it.
Oh man, they made that movie. That movie was triple X rated. Half the cast was porno stars and stuff, and the other half was A-list actors and shit. So
what about the firearms? They didn't charge him with the firearms. They just tried a RICO case. So they never charged. There were some unregistered firearms, maybe some automatic weapons, but they never charged him with that. And they were kids. Thank you, Karen. Those were young ladies. You know, the history goes back to the music stars over the last 100, however far back you want to go, right? The 16 and 17-year-old groupies, and it's tasteless.
We've been dealing with entertainment. Earl Flynn went on trial for a 14-year-old. Fatty Arbuckle, I don't know people knew who he was. He was a famous comedian. And his career was fucked because a woman died with one of those orgies. Tyrone Power had these little young girls died of a heart attack with a 15-year-old. They've been doing it a long time, and they've been getting away with it. Even when they get caught, you know, they was able to pay their way out of this shit. And it's the never-ending story. Money talks, bullshit walks. Well, I guess we come to an end. We're going to be on tomorrow, Saturday. We should have a full crew. Everybody should be back.
And you know, like my music is right on. That's exactly that completely ignores how power works. But I just want to say my final word, if I could, Adolph, is it's the 4th of July. People have a lot of responsibility, and we're grateful that all our friends came tonight and made the show what it is. And it never works without you. So if Adolph and I were just here talking to each other, it'd be, you know, Adolph and I just talking to each other.
I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. You can watch that movie.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to say to everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Vanessa, for the few minutes that we had with you. Keep enjoying your rest of the evening. And we'll be back tomorrow at 10 a.m.
I'll see you then.
Yeah, that was good. Can you hear, Jim?